Hi guys, and welcome back to the Red Mist podcast with me, Seshadri, and welcome to the preview episode of the game between Liverpool and West Ham United at Anfield tomorrow. Just a quick word: there was no preview to the Midtjylland game, and there was no raw reaction to the game because I was due to travel the day after. There was a lot of issues with the travel itself, so I actually didn't end up traveling the day after. I traveled literally yesterday, and I arrived today as the day I'm recording this, which is 30th of October. It's a whole long travel story, honestly. It was quite an experience, but I was traveling back to India from Newcastle. I've finished my studies at university, and I just have my thesis to write, so that I'm going to do from home. And home is Chennai for me, for those of you who don't know that. So it's in India, it's Chennai. And like I said, I'm excited to be back home. The only sort of factor that's annoying in all of this is the fact that now Premier League games are going to be at odd times rather than the usual sort of evening or afternoon or night kickoffs at 8 o'clock. But it is what it is. We adjust and we watch and we move. That's exactly why I didn't have a preview episode or a raw reactions episode for the Midtjylland game. But thankfully, with the Champions League games, you have two games of these. So the return leg when they do host us at in Denmark, we will have a preview and a Champions League raw reactions episode. So, yeah, no disrespect to Midtjylland, but it was just my own personal circumstances. Really, that's kind of why I was not able to do any episode on them. But we move and we're back in the Premier League this weekend, and the Premier League will be starting in about an hour and a half, really. And as I'm recording this, Wolves will be taking on Crystal Palace at the Molineux. And that'll kickstart this weekend of the Premier League fixtures. But tomorrow, of course, is the game between Liverpool and West Ham late. I think it's a late kickoff. I'm not sure. Maybe there's one more game after ours. But, it is an evening kickoff. In India, it's 11 p.m. So that would be around 5:30 in the UK. So, anyway, it promises to be quite an entertaining game. Liverpool are kind of hitting form at the right time. Midtjylland wasn't exactly great, but we weren't exactly bad either. But there were multiple reasons for that, and I don't want to get into all of it right now. Some of it we might actually get to during the preview episode. Like I said, let's talk West Ham. Let's talk what we're dealing with. So West Ham United, obviously, in my preseason predictions, I had them at 16th because I said they were one of those teams which had the potential to be a top half team, had the team to be a top half team. But they almost always played under their potential, and they almost always underperformed. Last season was a clear example of that. This season, I don't know how it's going to pan out, but so far it's actually been okay. But, their problems didn't seem to stop on the pitch last year. It extended off the pitch. There was a lot of discontent. Fans were angry at the owners. There was a lot of anger that was directed at the owners, the way the club was managed, or rather mismanaged. And the biggest example for this, of course, is Grady Diangana's departure to West Brom, which even as a Liverpool fan, I'll admit that's a very strange transfer because it involves a talented youngster who's doing quite well at West Brom, I might add. It involves a departure of a talented youngster who could have maybe broken through the team at West Ham itself, and it involves a departure of that sort of a player, that calibre of a player, a creative spark in midfield, in attacking midfield. And, it provoked a lot of reactions, most notably, of course, from their club captain, club legend, Mark Noble, who went on and tweeted that Grady, as captain of this football club, I'm gutted, angry and sad that Grady has left. Great kid with a great future. That tweet was liked by Declan Rice. Masuaku reacted to it, with an emoji, and Jack Wilshere commented on the Instagram post that Grady deserves to be at a club where he is respected, in what was, I guess, a slight dig at how West Ham treated Wilshere himself. But yeah, overall the summer window went on and they did improve. Tomas Soucek, Vladimir Kufal, they were the big signings. Soucek, of course, was on loan at West Ham last year, signed permanently this summer. Vladimir Kufal joined him. Craig Dawson came on loan, and their latest signing during the domestic-only transfer window was from Brentford, with Said Benrahma joining them. So, very exciting signing. I'm very excited for Said Benrahma to be in the Premier League, and we'll see. I'll talk a little bit more about him later on, but I'm excited for him. So overall, I would say, looking at it from the outside, I'd say West Ham's window was very meh. Not the greatest of windows, but because I feel like they could have improved a lot if they were well run, and if they spent their money wisely. But I feel like they wasted this opportunity. And but that being said, they have actually done well for themselves so far. Now, obviously, it didn't start well, and a lot of questions were asked immediately after their first game, which was a 2-0 loss to Newcastle. I happened to watch that game because Newcastle's kind of become my second team, having lived there and watched them a few times at St. James's Park. So it's kind of become like my second team, and I want to see them do well. So they lost 2-0 to Newcastle. Very abject performance, very disappointing performance. Like, even as a neutral, it was just dispirited. It was, all the issues that were there off season just seemed to have poured out onto the pitch. And then came the EFL Cup game against Charlton, where they did well, won 3-0. And then they went to Emirates to play Arsenal, and that was the first game where we really saw what West Ham could do. They lost the game 2-1, but they gave a very good account of themselves. Very unlucky not to come away with with at least a point there. West Ham then went on. I think they really kicked on at this point after the Arsenal game, because the Arsenal game, I think they played quality opposition, at least opposition that was better than they were at that point. And they felt like they could give anyone a run for their money. And then came the Hull City game again in the the Carabao Cup, and that they won 5-1. And then the statement of intent was against Wolves. 4-0 win at home against Wolves. That was a statement of intent. They had a little bit of a blip with Everton, losing out again in the League Cup, losing out to Everton 4-1. But then they recovered really well, and then now they've got a 3-0 win against Leicester, a 3-all draw against Tottenham with an epic Lanzini goal to seal the deal. They 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go. I'm thinking Tottenham's got this in the bag, and then West Ham just pull out all the stops and get a draw out of it. And then, of course, last week they held Man City to a 1-1 draw at home. This fixture list is not something that I would wish on any team. I know Liverpool a few years ago under Brendan Rodgers had one of these kind of fixture lists, but within the last few games they've played Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham, Leicester, and Man City, and now they're coming to Liverpool. So it's not a fixture list that you'd wish on, that you'd wish for your own team, but it is, you just play the games you're handed, you just play what's in front of you. And unfortunately, not the greatest of fixture lists, but they have actually done well. They're currently 12th in the table with 8 points, which is something that at this stage, by the time they were visiting Liverpool, they would have definitely taken that. Theoretically, if they lose to Liverpool tomorrow, they could slip down towards relegation, but they do have an easy run of fixtures after that, with Man United and Chelsea being the only two of the big six that they haven't played, and they're playing them in December. Everton, of course, is also there, and they're playing them in January, if I'm not mistaken. So the remainder of the way for the first half of the season seems okay for them. So, I mean, in November, they should be able to pick up points, especially because, they don't, I think they play Sheffield and Fulham, if I'm not mistaken, in November. I may be wrong on this, but, I will check that. But they do have, they play Fulham and Sheffield. I was right. So they do have a fairly easy fixture list going through November. Obviously, there's the international break in between as well. As for West Ham itself, team news, Michail Antonio is going to miss the game against Liverpool. Had a hamstring issue last game against Man City, pulled up, had to be subbed out for Andrei Yarmolenko. He's going to be missing the game against Liverpool. Big miss for them. Michail Antonio has been really good for them. He's going to be a big miss. He works hard, he presses hard, has got a good shot on him, very strong player. Another one who made the cut into the Premier League from non-league football, just like Jamie Vardy. But he's a good player, and he should, he will be a big miss for them. Andrei Yarmolenko might be his most likely replacement. But I don't see Yarmolenko working as hard. He can neglect his defensive duties quite a bit, whereas Antonio will just keep running, pressing defenders and things like that. So he's a good fit for West Ham, especially against the stronger teams. and especially he would have fancied a chance against a backline that doesn't even have Fabinho at this point. So Joe Gomez and whoever's partnering him, he would have fancied a chance against that. But we'll see how that goes. Jared Bowen is another player that I want to give a shout out to. He's been in good form through the season. Again, very hardworking, goes up and down the pitch, presses really hard. For me personally, I think he's been a very, very good player for West Ham. He's one of the positive aspects of West Ham through the first 6 games or so. The other player that I do want to talk about, I mentioned a little bit earlier, Said Benrahma, was immense for Brentford last year. Unfortunately, didn't achieve promotion with them. And honestly, I will never forgive Brentford for letting Fulham through, because I personally felt, given the course of the season, Brentford deserved to be in the Premier League. And, now they've lost Ollie Watkins, now they've lost Benrahma, they've lost a lot of their key players. I don't know what's going to happen. But Said Benrahma, he wasn't fit enough to make the matchday 18 against Manchester City, but he should be fit enough to play against Liverpool. I don't think he will start. But I think he might come off the bench. This is what David Moyes had to say about him. He said, and I quote, "He needs to get up to speed with what we want and where we are at. So it has given me the opportunity to take a bit more time with him. But I have said the name before with the boys from the Championship. I have said the same before with the boys from the Championship. I am not in any rush to put them in." So obviously, David Moyes feels like there's a little bit of a quality gap when you take the jump from the Premier League when you take the jump from the Championship to the Premier League. And that's something that some players struggle with initially, and which is why I don't think Benrahma will start, but I do think he will have some part to play during the game, especially if it's close, especially if it's like still a stalemate at the end of 60-70 minutes. I feel like Benrahma will come in at some point. So Said Benrahma, I'm very excited. He suits David Moyes in terms of, you look at this West Ham team. They line up in a 5-4-1, and I'll get to their potential lineups in a little bit. But their main attacking threat is going down the wing on the counter. Declan Rice, obviously, he's looked a cut above the rest in the Hammers lineup. The England international, we need to control him in midfield, and because he can spray passes out wide. But they're similar to Liverpool in terms of, their main attacks come down the right. They've got Fornals, they've got Fornals, they've got Benrahma now, they've got Jared Bowen, obviously, and Yarmolenko sometimes takes the right hand side. So, you never know. So like I said, the main attacking threat is down that side, and I feel like they will be defensively solid. They're a very typical David Moyes team: 2 banks of 5 and 4, and then they have a lone striker playing up top. Which is where Michail Antonio helped them, because he would hold the ball up for midfield runners. I feel like, I said Yarmolenko might be the most natural replacement for him because he's come on a few times, but I feel like this is one of those games where Sebastian Haller might be more of a striker that they might look to. But so they've got 2 banks of 5 and 4, speed on the count with Fornals, Bowen, and Yarmolenko. Sometimes Haller can hold the ball. Michail Antonio usually does that job. And then obviously you've got Kufal, Rice, and Masuaku mainly for support. Souček rarely joins in when it's an attack, but he does kind of sit back. He does kind of sit back, try and recycle possession, or he will try and shore up the backline, because Liverpool are good on the counter, Manchester City are good on the counter, so he'll kind of stay there, prevent any sort of quick counters, and just basically protect the backline in a way. Sometimes you might actually see Aaron Cresswell come in and join the attack from deep. It's a very Kieran Tierney-esque role where the centre backs sort of underlap. And he was originally a left back, although he does play left centre back for West Ham. So he can carry the ball. So he might be someone who might join in from time to time. Souček will again protect the backline in that sense. In that case, if Cresswell goes ahead. As for potential lineups, like I said, West Ham are going to line up in a 5-4-1. Lucas Fabianski in goal. The backline will be Kufal, Balbuena, Ogbonna, Cresswell, Masuaku. Jared Bowen will be on the right hand side. Souček, Rice, Fornals, and I think Sebastian Haller's not played much, so I wouldn't trust Moyes to put him straight into the starting lineup. Although he would be the sort of positional replacement for Michail Antonio. I feel like Andrei Yarmolenko will get the nod ahead of Sebastian Haller, which is kind of sad because Haller used to be really good at Frankfurt, but I think he was more. I think where West Ham made the mistake by signing Sebastian Haller is when he played at Frankfurt with Luka Jovic, he wasn't expected to be the main goal scoring threat. Where Haller was one of those people who would set others up, kind of like an Olivier Giroud in a sense, but less efficient. Um, I think where West Ham made the mistake was they expected him to be Luka Jovic, and he just didn't turn out to be that person. So it was unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. He's not getting a lot of game time. I don't expect him to start against Liverpool either. I expect Yarmolenko to get the nod ahead of Sebastian Haller. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. As for Liverpool, the unfortunate news is that during the game against Midtjylland, Fabinho had he pulled up with a hamstring problem, which means we're going to be without him. Most likely till after the international break. He's been replaced by Alan from Everton in the Brazilian team as well. So most likely he's not going to be fit enough to play through the international break as well. The good news is, of course, that the scan came back and reports are that it was not as bad as initially feared. It says it's a grade 1 or a grade 2 hamstring tear as opposed to a grade 3, which would have kept him out for 6 months. So no Fabinho means we have a major issue at centre-back. Joe Gomez is now the only fit centre-back available. Matip is still not available to play, which means Gomez is going to have to go with... if you're looking directly, again, positionally, I think the next best option is Reece Williams. Which is... Look, I know it's West Ham, I know it's a home game, but throwing him into a Premier League game against... quality. I mean, look, if you're playing in the Premier League, you're still a quality footballer. So, and Reece Williams, as much as, he's done well. He did well against Midtjylland. He did well against Ajax in the few minutes that he played. He's done well, but to throw him in a Premier League game for a full 90 minutes even against guys like Fornals and Yarmolenko, who are established internationals, who are good Premier League footballers, it's a task. I think Reece Williams needs to be blooded in, which is why I expect one of the midfielders to play centre-back. So whether that's Gini Wijnaldum, James Milner or Jordan Henderson, I don't know. Personally, I would go with Jordan Henderson because he's played there before, and defensively I think he's better than Gini Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum's also played there before. Milner, I haven't seen him play much at centre-back, but I mean, the man's played so many positions in his career. I'm sure he's played a game or two at centre-back. So... Milner is probably third choice for me. I'd say go with Hendo and Gomez, and then play Robertson on the left and Trent on the right. But that's a backline that the West Ham fans, the West Ham players are going to be looking at and saying, okay, we can actually have a go at them. And that's what we need to be careful about. We can't let West Ham get a foothold in the game. If they take an early lead, then we're going to find it really difficult because, like a typical David Moyes side, they're going to be hoofing long balls forward. They're going to be sitting in banks of 4 and 5, and it's going to be very difficult to break them down. Like I said, Joe Gomez, Gini Wijnaldum, Joe Gomez, Henderson, Joe Gomez, James Milner, or Joe Gomez, Reece Williams. I think the big question is, I think for me, the choice comes down to whether you want experience, in which case you're going either Gini or Hendo, or do you want positional sort of fit, positional suitability, which I would say would point towards Reece Williams more than the other two. I personally, I would go with Hendo at centre back. I think Alisson, Trent, Gomez, Hendo, Robbo, that'll be my sort of back 5. With midfield being depending on formation really, because I don't know if we're going to be playing a double pivot or if we're going to be playing a 4-3-3. Because if we're playing a double pivot, I would say let's go with Wijnaldum, and I think it's a hard choice to make between James Milner and Curtis Jones. Because I think I would say James Milner, because we do need to stabilize the game, especially in the absence of Fabinho and with Henderson playing out of position. I'd say go with Wijnaldum and James Milner. If we're playing 4-2-3-1, that is. If we're playing 4-3-3, I would say go with Wijnaldum, Milner and Curtis Jones. I think Curtis has done enough to prove that he deserves another start. I think he's done enough to sort of earn his Premier League minutes. So I think a start right now, and if he keeps up his impressive performances, I think then, he's going to have, Klopp's going to have some questions to answer in terms of team selection when people start coming back to fitness. But so I'd say Wijnaldum, Milner, Curtis Jones if you're playing 4-3-3. If you're playing 4-2-3-1, then I would say Wijnaldum and Milner as the double pivot. And then, of course, again, if we're playing 4-2-3-1, then we're going to have to play 4 attacking players, which would mean Diogo Jota, Sadio Mane, Bobby Firmino, and Mo Salah. So Bobby Firmino playing in the middle, sort of central attacking midfield role as a second striker, I guess, with Salah up front, and then Jota and Mane on the wings. Minamino was one person I would have considered before the Midtjylland game, but the Midtjylland game, he got a start. He had to prove himself. He just didn't. The truth is, I've been banging on about Minamino deserving a start over Bobby Firmino, but the thing is, when he did get to start against Midtjylland, he had a bad game. And when you're a substitute and when you're given a chance to prove that you deserve a starting 11, you need to take that chance with both hands, unfortunately. And now I'm not backtracking, but I feel like Minamino didn't make the most of that chance, and that was a game that he could have made the most of that chance, because no disrespect to Midtjylland, but that is a team that we should be comfortably beating. And Jota had an average game as well. Wasn't particularly great. I know he scored the goal, but it wasn't particularly great. Otherwise, he had an average game as well. But Jota, whenever he's come on as a substitute, he took his chances and he fit like a hand to a glove, really. So, I mean, personally, if you're going 4-2-3-1, I'd say Jota, Mane, Salah, Bobby. If we're going 4-3-3, then it's just the boys. Diogo Jota, unfortunately, will have to be on the bench again. Yeah, like I said, I mentioned trying Reece Williams out. Another factor that sort of plays into this, into this idea of trying Reece Williams out in this game, getting him his Premier League debut in this game, would be, one, it's a home game. Two, there's no crowd, so there's no real pressure. If you make a mistake, sometimes it's okay. But with Michail Antonio out, it's not as much of it may not be as much of a problem as we might think, but I still think it's a big risk because he is still going up against some decent footballers at Premier League level. So I would say, and he's not had championship experience. He's not had experience playing for a lower the table Premier League club either. So, earlier this year he was playing non-league football, and he's done well for himself. He's trained well. Whenever he's played well, but the sample size is just too small. And I feel like he needs to be blooded in a little bit more. Keep him on the bench, give him a few minutes every single game. Premier League, Champions League, whenever you can, whenever you're leading, whenever you can, give him a little bit of a game time. And then when, slowly increase the number of minutes he plays in each of these games, and then over the course of this season, and then maybe towards the end of this season or maybe next season, he's maybe ready for a full debut, and that he can work out in the Premier League setting if, by that point. But I think right now might be too early for him. So, look, I'm impressed with Reece Williams. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to turn out to be a good player. But I feel like he does need to be blooded in a little bit more. I feel like he does need to. It would be nice if he made his debut tomorrow, but I don't see it happening because I think it's a big risk to debut against West Ham in a Premier League game in a season where teams are actually close, and in a season where mistakes could cost you quite a bit. So personally, I think that's just my thoughts on the centre-back situation. Fabinho not being back until after the international break is a big blow because we play Manchester City before that. So we need Joel Matip to be fit. Like, we can't go into Manchester City with Henderson, Wijnaldum or Reece Williams playing at centre-back. There's just no way. So yeah, I think that's just my take on it. But should make for a good game tomorrow. Predictions, I am going to go with a 2-0 win for Liverpool. It's going to be close. It's going to be nervy at times, but I feel like we should still have enough to sort of get it past the hammers and strike the hammer blow, if you will. But that's been this preview for the West Ham game tomorrow. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. My name is Seshadri. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.